Yeah, good morning. My name is Merriman. I'm a Managing Director of Carrick Kane Consulting, but I'm a former Global Online Sales Director at Philips. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about e-commerce and how e-commerce is changing how we shop. Some of the things you may recognize, but I'm coming at it from a slightly different perspective because I'm looking at it really from the consumer point of view. But I just want to start off with a couple of facts and figures just to get people on the right track when it comes to e-commerce. So if you look in terms of global website traffic, Amazon is ranked number 11, just behind Twitter. And you might think, yeah, okay, nothing too remarkable there. But when you think about it a little bit, particularly from a retail point of view, why do people go to Google to search? Why do people go to Twitter to tweet? Why do they go to Facebook to look at their friends' children? Why do people go to Amazon? They go to buy. So the 11th most popular website in the world is a place where people go to buy. And I think from a retail point of view, that's really important because the intention is there to buy, but whether or not they actually buy on Amazon is another point entirely. A lot of people go to Amazon to research, to review, to see what other people are saying about the products. So even though they're on Amazon, there's still an opportunity for another retailer to come in and to buy the product, either in-store or offline. What I found really interesting when I was working at Philips was the fact that we were looking for a global number 2 partner to work with. We were working with Amazon, that was great, really good relationship, everything was fine, but Philips was becoming overly dependent on Amazon as a big online retail player. So we were looking around for somebody else. We looked at Pixmania, we looked at various others, but what was really striking was the fact there wasn't a number 2. And I'm talking 4 or 5 years ago, there wasn't a number 2. This time, 2013, there's still no number 2. And it's highly unlikely there will be another emerging online pure player. I would take eBay as being exceptional because that's a platform, it's not a retailer as such. But it's just quite remarkable that everybody's talking about e-commerce and it's growing and everything that's happening, and yet Amazon is so dominant as an online pure player. So what does that mean for the other retailers? What are they doing? The fact of the matter is, brick and click retail is where the action is at the moment. That's where the growth is. You heard earlier about Walmart and how Walmart are investing in big data. They're also investing in e-commerce. In the past, if you'd have asked somebody from Walmart, who's your number 1 competitor, they would have said Target. Now they say it's Amazon. So the whole retail dynamic has shifted because of what Amazon has done, and it's really kind of turned things on its head. These are some numbers from the UK. By 2016, it's predicted that 22% of total retail, so that's real retail, that's physical products, so that's not concert tickets or flights or hotels, that's actual proper physical retail. 22% of it is going to take place online by 2016, which is only about 2 or 3 years away. 20% of UK shoppers will buy all of their Christmas gifts online this year. So this is happening. This isn't tomorrow's world. This isn't a look into the future. This is happening now. The consumer is going online, and I think we saw examples earlier on as to why that's happening. But if you're in Ireland, this isn't such a fantastic story because 71% of products that were searched for in Ireland did not return an Irish retailer who could sell that product. So people wanted to buy products online, but they couldn't find an Irish retailer that was doing it. This is a quote from last summer from the Digital Hub, which is the development agency in Ireland responsible for all things digital. And they said, I'll just focus on that number there, the loss to the Irish economy is potentially 21 billion if we don't improve our online capabilities, our online retail capabilities, because the fact of the matter is Irish people are shopping online, but they're not shopping online from Irish retailers. They're buying from Amazon, they're buying from ASOS, they're buying from Argos, they're buying from all of the UK retailers because Irish retail at this moment in time hasn't really stepped up yet and hasn't really seized the opportunity that online presents. This is what Ben Dunn, who knows a thing or two about retail, is saying. Why bother with shops with expensive displays and staff kitted out in uniforms and high-cost refrigeration display units? The current retailing model is the most expensive way of doing it. So someone like Ben Dunn is really standing up saying, guys, we thought we were doing it right, but we're not. All of the things that Mark and Damien referred to, they're happening. Changes are taking place now that mean what we're doing in retail stores at the moment is out of date and expensive. So this is what retail used to look like. You would go in and you say, I want to buy milk. He would hand you the milk. I want to buy bread. He hands you the bread. I want to buy frozen pizza. He says, are you crazy? It's the 1950s. Frozen pizza hasn't been invented. But essentially, it was the retailer who was in control. The retailer was the one who determined what you bought, when you bought it, what you paid for it. You as a consumer had very little power, very little control, very little insight into what was happening. But that has started to change, and most of my presentation I'll talk about the shift to the consumer and the fact that it's now the consumer who has assuming all of the power. And it's coming through in a variety of different ways. One of it is just the range of products. I think Damien referred to the fact that there's 15,000 products in a retail store. If you go to eBay, there's 50 million products available. So the consumer has so much more choice than they had in the past. And that choice can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because sometimes there's just too much choice out there. Something else that's been constantly referred to this morning that's shifting power to the consumer is mobile technology. The fact that you have a computer in your pocket which is so powerful and which gives you access to so much information. And that isn't just happening out of store, that's also happening in store. When you're in store, there's constant opportunities for you to get more information, for you to get coupons, for you to get access to things that are going to help and improve your shopping experience. And again, this whole idea of online and offline converging, whether you call it omni-channel or not, there is this convergence from a consumer perspective. When I started working in online at Philips about 7 or 8 years ago, people talked about doing something online, and it was almost like a special event. You know, yeah, we're going to do all of this offline and we're going to do something different online, because it was seen as being two different consumers living in two different worlds. Now those worlds have converged. It would be preposterous to talk about something being only happening in the online space. So these are causing changes, but if you're a shopper, you're still looking for a lot of the same things. You're still looking for the kind of artisan experience that Hubbub talked about. You want to buy quality, you want to buy freshness. You want to have the range of products, and you want to have the experience. You want to feel special. You want to have the Brown Thomas guy welcoming you into the store. So the consumer wants to have all of those, whether it's an online or an offline environment, but they're becoming much more demanding because they also don't want this. They don't want to feel ripped off. They don't want to go into Brown Thomas and spend €150 on a shirt and realize that they could have bought the same shirt for €100 somewhere else. Because then it's not worth, then you know that you're really subsidizing this guy by paying over the top for the products. So the consumer is very, very demanding, but the consumer is very savvy. The consumer has access to so much more information than they ever had in the past. So there's a real challenge from a retailer perspective of how are you going to respond to that? What are you going to do? And this came back in one of the previous presentations, exactly the same message. You know, you need to make your customers happy, because a happy customer is going to buy more. So what's going to make that customer happy? You need to understand what's making your customer tick so you can sell to them. This is the third time you've seen this presentation, so if there's one, or this slide. So if there's one thing you remember is that you can buy things from walls in different scenarios. This is an example from Tesco's in Korea. This is in a metro station. There are the doors where you can get into the train, and these are the kind of walls along there. You can go on, you can scan, you can shop. The nice thing about this is that Tesco's guaranteed that within 1 hour of you placing your order, it will be delivered to your home. So you're on your way home, you're too busy to go into a shop, you're not passing one. You've got downtime anyway because you're standing waiting for a train. But the consumer is now able to use that downtime to do something constructive. They can buy the milk, and the retailer is guaranteeing, yeah, I'll have that milk waiting for you when you come home. The showrooming phenomenon is something else that has also come up. It's the fact that you as a consumer have so much power. You can go into, this example here is from consumer electronics, and consumer electronics is one of the industries that suffered most as a consequence of this. You can go into Power City or DID or Harvey Norman, and you can say, that TV, that Samsung 42-inch TV that you're selling for $499, I can get that for $499 now on Amazon. Will I press the button now, or are you going to give it to me for $449? If you're a retailer, you're faced with a very interesting dilemma. Do you lose the sale because you know the guy can buy it on Amazon, you know that they can deliver, you know that there's not a problem, or do you sell it to him for $449? I think a lot of people would look at their margin and they would probably say, you know what, I'm still going to make a tenner on it, better to get the sale, maybe I'll sell him a couple of cables, so you'll do it. But then what's happening to your pricing strategy? Because de facto, you're handing over control of your pricing strategy to Amazon or to whoever happens to be selling at the lowest price. And this is a huge, huge problem for retail, because you're really faced with an uneven playing field. As a physical retailer, you're looking at all of the costs that you have. You're looking at your stores, you're looking at your staff, you're looking at everything that goes along with maintaining them, and you're competing against Amazon, which has a warehouse. So they've got a much lower cost base, and that's allowing them to undercut you. So as a retailer, you've got to ask yourself the question, do I allow myself to be undercut and lose the sale, or do I match the price and risk losing margin and eventually driving myself out of business? So this is a real challenge for the retailers. How do you respond to this, and how do you put a strategy in place to manage this? Mark mentioned already the fact that some retailers are saying, I've got an online price and an offline price. But now the consumer has a mobile phone. That worked 4 or 5 years ago when people didn't have mobile phones and they weren't able to view what your online price was. But now it's almost insulting to a consumer to think that you would charge them a different price online compared to offline. So pricing is a big, big challenge that retailers need to look at. This is something that has also been referred to earlier, the idea about promotions. But what's really interesting for me about promotion is the fact that an awful lot of branded products are now being sold on promotion. In Ireland, it's about 40 to 50%. In the UK, it's about 60%. In a market like Denmark, it's about 90%. 90% of branded products are sold on promotion in grocery stores. Yesterday, I was shopping in Dunnes. I would say probably 40-50% of my basket at least was sold on promotion. But what did Dunnes get in return for all of the buy one, get one frees or get two for €2? They got nothing. I didn't ask for those promotions. I didn't go in and barter. I didn't say, I might buy 2 of these if you give me 2 for €2. They offered me the promotions. They just said, yep, there you are. Why spend more? Just buy it directly from us. And what did they get in return for giving me these bargains? Absolutely nothing. They got no data. They didn't know how relevant those promotions were. They didn't know of the 5,000 products that were in promotion in store, why I bought 10 and didn't buy any of the others. They got nothing back for it, and yet they gave me the promotions, because at the moment, retailers are confronted with the fact that they do need to promote, but they've got to maximize the return that they get from the promotion. So they've got to be an awful lot smarter about promotions. If you look at the SuperValue app at the moment, which we have in Ireland, it doesn't really help me to shop online or in store. Okay, I can book a slot if I'm in Ballincollig. I can continue shopping. But it's not merging those two experiences, and it's not talking to me as a consumer about what I buy, about what I might buy in the future, and about how they can help me to spend more. This is an example from the US where they are sending out these personalized deals. And again, it's very, very easy, and it's very, very efficient if you manage something like this, because you know about your consumer. We heard about Walmart and all of the information they're getting about their consumers. You know about your consumer. So how are you using that data to offer something that's relevant to the consumer? And I think relevance is one of the really key messages that got lost a couple of years ago. I don't know how many of you signed up for Groupon. I don't know how many of the men in the room went for a leg waxing session at Groupon, because every day they were getting offers for leg waxes, tanning salons, everything else. And ultimately, the Groupon model started to fail because they weren't able to offer relevant promotions. They were just saying, we've got a list of 10 promotions and we're going to offer them to everybody. And what do you know? Very few people are going to pick them up because they're not relevant. So you need to use the data, you need to use the information that's at your disposal to show your consumer that you understand them and that you offer them relevant promotions. This is something else that's really interesting about the consumer. The consumer wants promotions. The consumer wants help. Again, because you've got 15,000 products in a grocery store, you want somebody who can help you to find the ones that are best for you and the ones that suit your lifestyle. This is an example here from Hellmann's. What they did was they analyzed what you had bought. They analyzed what was in your shopping trolley, and then based upon that, they gave you recipes. So they looked at this, they said, you've got chicken, you've got oil, you've got mushrooms, you've got Hellmann's, here's a Hellmann's recipe. And then you would get that back on your till receipt. So they were really looking at the consumer, looking at what this person was buying, seeing how they could help that person. The impact of this promotion was that in stores where it was activated, there was a 44% increase in Hellmann's sales. So if you help your consumer to spend more of their money, you will sell more of your product. Coca-Cola have a big issue about selling online, because why would you buy a Coke online? You know, you buy Coke because you're out for lunch, you're walking past the shop, and you go in and you buy it, you drink it on the spot. So if you're looking at things like the current consumption, Coca-Cola aren't really in the market. And that's a huge portion of the sales that they make. It's bought for instant consumption. So they've had to look at the future consumption. So they've had to look at, well, when are people likely to buy Coke? What are the events? What are the things that people are going to do at the same time as drinking Coke? And one of them is eating pizza. What do people do on a Friday evening? They rent a video or DVD, or they download something from Netflix, they get a pizza, and hopefully they drink Coke. So Coca-Cola are now proactively looking for opportunities when people are likely to consume their product, and they're making it easy for them to buy that online alongside other promotional activities that are going to be relevant, like a Netflix promotion, like a pizza promotion. Something else that's really interesting is you've got a whole lot of people out there who are looking for help. If you look back at the example from Hubbub, I think Donnybrook Fair would certainly be a candidate if Ireland was to open its version of Hubbub. So Donnybrook Fair are offering quite high-end products to people. And what do you know about these consumers? Just off the top of your head, you know that most people who shop at Donnybrook Fair are reasonably affluent, and they spend a lot of time cooking, and quality is really important to them. I think they're probably things that most retailers will be interested in, that kind of consumer. So what can you do to help those consumers to spend more? If you give them recipes, if you make them part of a community, Damien was talking about Facebook and how Facebook can be used for making sales. If you make them part of a Donnybrook Fair community which talks about recipes, which talks about lifestyle, which talks about time saving, which talks about ease of delivery and all of those other nice things, you're going to make that a happy consumer. You're going to make them a much more loyal Donnybrook Fair consumer, and that person is ultimately going to buy more from you. Who has ever bought meat online? Who would ever buy meat online? I would say if you were to ask people what are the top 10 things you're least likely to buy online, meat would have been one of them. Why? Because it's going to go off, the quality, you're not sure. There's an awful lot of barriers to buying meat online. And one of the things I do in my consulting role is I try to help retailers and brands remove the barriers to buying online or to selling online. And if you're a butcher, you would say, yeah, there's an awful lot of barriers to selling online. So what have James Whelan Butchers done? They've created a really, really fantastic website where they've made the quality of the products speak for itself. They've created an environment where people are comfortable shopping. They've talked about who they are, about their heritage, about the guarantee, about the fact it's farm fresh. So they've built a story around their products. So you're not just going to buy something cheap and cheerful that you're not sure about the quality. The other thing that they've really over-invested in is the delivery, because they know that getting the delivery on time, getting the produce in the kind of quality that people expect is extremely important to them. It's one of the big barriers to people not buying meat online. So what they've done is they've worked very closely with a delivery company. They do all of the things that Hubbub and Ocado do. They give you time windows where the delivery can be expected. So they will tell you, we will deliver your meat on Saturday morning between 10 and 10:30. It will be delivered in a cardboard box that keeps the meat at a set temperature for 40 hours. So we can guarantee that anything that you would buy in our store in Clonmel is going to be in exactly the same quality when it arrives on your doorstep in Dublin or in Cork or wherever else. Click and collect is something else that was referred to earlier on. The consumer is cash rich and time poor. So you need to make it easy for them. And if you look on the Tesco's website, they do that. They say 3 steps. Buying online is easy. Again, it's about removing barriers. They're saying we bring you convenience, we bring you all of the things that you want and you expect from Tesco's, but we bring it to you in a very convenient way. It's designed around you as a consumer. It's designed around how you want to shop. One of the big concerns in the past has been about delivery and about the fact that we didn't have postcodes in Ireland. I don't know whether this is really going to be the revolutionary change that everybody thinks it might be. But again, it was put forward as being one of the barriers for e-commerce not really taking off in Ireland. It was also put up as a deliberate barrier that people were saying that we were building walls around so that the UK retailers weren't able to make an impact in Ireland because they wouldn't be able to find the houses. But this is a change that's going to take place in the next year or two, where everybody is going to have a unique postcode. And it will be interesting to see what that really does. Is that really going to have a significant impact on e-commerce? Is that really going to help to change how people are shopping online in Ireland? Another barrier to e-commerce, and another thing that the consumer is now really focusing on, is the fact that they want to be at home. or they're afraid they're not going to be at home when a delivery is made. So you've probably all seen these parcel motels. A lot of them are in service stations across Ireland. And the idea is that when you're placing your order, you can have that order delivered to a parcel motel. You will then get an email with a code which will allow you to go in and open up whichever of those particular doors has your parcel inside it. It's a great idea. It's been very, very successful. Again, it's removing a barrier to e-commerce. But if you look at it from a retailer perspective, if you look at a model like this, click and collect, which is quite expensive and quite time consuming, and there's an awful lot of time and effort goes into that, the retailer is prepared to subsidize something like this. Why not subsidize something like Parcel Motel? If you know that your customers are interested in this kind of service, but they mightn't be prepared to pay because there's a fee which is paid for by the end consumer, why not talk to your customer and say, well, we'll offer you a Parcel Motel service for free. So you needn't worry about missing the order. We'll make sure that it's delivered here in a secure way, and we'll deliver it to your local petrol station, and you can pick it up at a time that's convenient to you. So it's really about thinking about the consumer and how can I be as consumer-centric, and how can I use all of the technology that's out there to make it as easy as possible for my consumers to buy from me, to make this whole online experience as smooth running as possible. One of the outcomes of this is that there has been a big increase in the amount of warehouse space and the amount of miles that are being devoted to driving around delivering all of these parcels. You saw the Ocado slide earlier on. Amazon have really revolutionized how people are managing warehousing and how they're managing the efficiencies around deliveries. What this slide just shows is the massive increase in the amount of warehouse space that's been devoted to grocery in UK and France. One of the things that was mentioned earlier on was the fact that stores are getting smaller. Over the last couple of years, we had this massive expansion where everything was going out of town, everything was being built on green fields, and you had huge, huge retail stores. Now a lot of those are empty because a lot of people are shopping online. So while the retail space is starting to shrink, the warehouse space is starting to get bigger. And if you can develop efficiencies around how you manage your warehouse, how you manage deliveries, if you can guarantee to somebody that their grocery delivery or their meat delivery or whatever delivery is going to be on their doorstep at a particular time within a time frame which is acceptable to the consumer, which increasingly is 1 to 3 days at an absolute maximum. A lot of customers are now expecting next day delivery, even same day delivery. So that places an awful lot of different challenges on you as a retailer, on you as a wholesaler, on you as somebody who is delivering goods and services to a consumer. And what you see with a lot of this warehouse space is it's an evolving retail environment. What they found when grocery retail started off, an awful lot of it was packing in store. So you lived in Rathfarnham, you went online, you put in all of your details. The Tesco's in Rathfarnham would pick up that order and they would say, okay, we've got an order for somebody in Rathfarnham, and they would send one of their staff out into the store and they would go, there's some cornflakes, there's some bread, there's some milk, and they would do that packing from that store. Obviously very, very expensive, very time consuming. There was a 15% cost on top of everything else to complete that order. So obviously that was a pretty inefficient way of doing it. So the reverse is now taking place, where an awful lot of what appears here as kind of warehouses is that they're dark stores. So they're the kind of stores that you saw at Ocado, because they're much more efficient. They're a much more efficient way to deliver grocery orders to your consumers. So because the consumer is becoming much more demanding, because the consumer has all of this information at their disposal, because the consumer is expecting a level of convenience and personalization around their shopping experience, it's up to the retailers to really step up and say, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to respond to this? Are we going to sit back and allow someone like Amazon to come in and just hoover up the Irish market because we just haven't gotten around to developing e-commerce? Or are we going to develop our own solutions to be able to respond to this? So I suppose my conclusion then, and I know we're a bit rushed for time, so that's why I've kept it reasonably concise. I suppose my conclusion is, as per the previous presentation, the retail landscape is changing. But my view on this is that it's very much changing in favor of the consumer, that the consumer is now assuming the power. We've gone away from the situation where the retailer could dictate to the consumer. But it's not a hopeless case because technology is allowing you to step up. Technology is allowing you to come up with innovative solutions which allow you, number one, to understand who is the consumer, what are they looking for, what are their demands through things like big data. And number two, to respond to the consumer by just having smarter ways of doing business, smarter ways of managing your transactions, smarter ways of managing your deliveries. And I suppose ultimately the big kind of danger sign that I would see, particularly for Irish retail, is if you're not doing it, your competitors are. Your competitors in Ireland may not be, but your competitors aren't just in Ireland anymore. Your competitors are, depending on the categories that you're in, your competitors are in the UK, your competitors are in the US. Maybe in 5 years' time we'll be talking about your competitors being in China. Maybe we'll be talking about somebody like 360buy or Taobao, who are two massive Chinese retailers or e-commerce platforms. Maybe they'll be your competitors in future. Or maybe the discussion will be irrelevant because maybe we'll all be out of business in 5 years' time. But I really think that fundamental to the health of your business is understanding e-commerce technology, understanding what's happening in that environment, and understanding how you can respond to it, because ultimately that's you responding to your consumer. Okay, thank you.